Thrilled to be joined by Ed Deveaux, the president of the New Jersey CannaBusiness Association. Ed, thanks for talking to me today.
Brian, thank you so much for having me.
So look, I want you to tell me about the role of the New Jersey CannaBusiness Association in New Jersey now that we're in the era of legalization. Tell me about that.
When we started the New Jersey CannaBusiness Association, it was myself and the partners of Burton Trent Public Affairs. We were sitting around a table, and we had just come back from the legislative delegative trip out west where they were examining the legalized industry. And we decided at that point that we should really be involved, but that the industry in New Jersey would need a professional organization to lead its efforts. So we created or co-created the New Jersey CannaBusiness Association, whose main role is to actually start a responsible and sustainable cannabis industry in the state of New Jersey. We've been extremely fortunate in that we are behaving like a true trade organization or like a true chamber of commerce. Our membership is diverse. We have accountants, we have attorneys, we have engineers, we have people in the insurance industry. It's all of the ancillary businesses that will help make up the industry going forward.
Give me some perspective on what the November 3rd election had to do with this issue.
So what happened on November 3rd was that the voters overwhelmingly approved a constitutional amendment that would essentially legalize cannabis in the state of New Jersey. The state has actually had a medical program for 10 years.
Right.
And this will now allow for adult use or recreational use.
There's a big difference, between, the medical usage or medical sanctioning, and the decriminalization and then legalization. So thank you for that perspective. Can you tell me what a successful cannabis industry looks like in New Jersey?
A successful cannabis industry in the state, in my opinion, and what the CannaBusiness Association is striving for, is a normalized type of industry. What we're looking to establish ultimately is an industry without artificial barriers. We would like an industry where let the marketplace decide. We would like to be able to give those members of communities that have been disenfranchised and disproportionately affected by the so-called war on drugs, we would like to give them a leg up in terms of establishing businesses. But ultimately, we would like an industry without artificial caps, artificial barriers, and allow growers and dispensaries to work with local government, letting communities, letting local government, letting counties decide how many dispensaries they would like, how many grow facilities they would like, and let the established zoning and planning processes take their course. And so ultimately, an industry without those artificial barriers, we think will be the most successful industry. In New Jersey, I would like to put it this way. We want to go to Main Street before we go to Wall Street. We want small local businesses to get established before we start talking about having large multi-state operating companies coming in and essentially creating a box store environment. It's better for the economy if we support local small and mid-sized businesses.
Tell me about this, about the value or importance of the supply chain or the foundations of this industry being Jersey-based and not sort of just doing business with some, as you call it, a big box outlet that might be Texas-based or something. Unpack that for me a little bit, and I'll follow up.
When you look at the economy in the state of New Jersey, the majority of businesses that support the New Jersey-based economy are small and mid-sized businesses.
Right.
Large businesses have come and they've clearly established themselves as leaders in certain aspects of industry. But for the most part, when you look at a state's economy, what makes that economy run is being able to keep the dollars in the state, allowing dollars to recirculate through communities, allowing those dollars to remain here, and by bolstering our local businesses. So what we really want to do is allow local businesses to flourish. That's what's best for a state economy.
And certainly this is, a pathway or another window for us to look at a progressive agenda. I think it's fair to say, that's moving things forward in the model of other states. Lastly, I want to touch on this idea of the local conversation. We're talking about, communities that have been disproportionately affected, by the criminalization of cannabis. And then there's also communities that really want a vibrant discussion about, what this industry means to their main street. And tell me how the New Jersey CannaBusiness Association will help foster those conversations, and how does that connect to the regulation of this as it goes forward?
This is a great topic for the association. I'll start with this. When we talk about the pandemic, we are looking at the cannabis industry as essentially a recession-proof or pandemic-proof industry. The grow facilities don't shut down. Dispensaries essentially don't go away. What we have found is that the dispensaries were, in essence, picking up business, unfortunately, because the pandemic created a lot of mental health strain as well as physical health strain. And so the recession-proof nature of cannabis does, in fact, add to its legitimacy as an industry. When we talk about communities that have been disproportionately affected by the enforcement of certain laws, what we're looking at doing, and the legislation that the state legislature is considering now, does in fact address that. It addresses how the tax revenue from the sale of cannabis will go to those communities to help them effectuate ways to grow business. And that could only help. Again, Brian, it's avoiding feeding dollars into the industrial prison complex. This is a way to bring money back to Main Street, back to the communities where that money belongs. So when we, again, talk about what this industry looks like, we're looking at opportunity. We're looking at opportunity for people to get into the delivery side of the business. We're looking for people to get into not just the growing and cultivation or processing of the plant or dispensing it. We're looking for people to open up lounges where people can responsibly partake of the substance. So there are going to be different avenues, different ways to get involved in this industry, and it will create at least some level of economic parity, which when we talk about social justice reform, it's not just the expungement of records, but it's what do you do to help people going forward, and allowing people that have unfortunately may have been incarcerated earlier to clean up their records and then enter the business, which they were originally punished for, we think is a tremendous way of shifting the paradigm.
Listen, the social justice conversation alone is a big conversation, an important conversation, but I want to make sure I highlight the word multi-billion with a B. This is a big amount of money on the table, and a slice of that is tax revenue, and I heard you say that, and that has to get the ears of Main Street. Am I correct?
Yes, it absolutely has. In fact, it is one of the prevailing factors as to why you seriously look at a legalized, responsible adult use industry. In fact, allow me to digress for a moment, because when we look at the conversations and we look at what the New Jersey CannaBusiness Association would like to do in terms of its conversations, yes, our conversations deal with policy. We're currently working with the legislature. We will be working with the Cannabis Regulatory Commission. That will be the regulating body beginning in January that will help create the regulations to help regulate the business. But Brian, I think I'd also like to point out, and it's been my pleasure to speak with law enforcement groups and medical groups, and we want to keep those conversations going as well. So while there is an economic discussion, a clear economic discussion, there are concerns, and the CannaBusiness Association is not going to shy away from those serious discussions. law enforcement agencies are concerned. They're concerned about what happens when the plant is actually legal and available for adult use. We stand with the law enforcement community in hopes that there will, in fact, be a way to test on site to see if people are driving impaired. No one in our association would ever promote irresponsible use. We don't promote use by minors, and we certainly don't promote irresponsible use by adults, much like that with drinking and driving. With the medical community, I had a chance to speak with the Academy of Family Practitioners. One of their areas of frustration was that there really was no formal training for a physician if they wanted to be involved in the industry. And so what we would also advocate for is to somehow develop training, somewhat of a cannabis education community, if you will, and make sure that physicians that are curious about becoming a practitioner in the space, that they feel comfortable doing it. So whether it's training or just making resources available, which, by the way, the Department of Health, the State Department of Health actually does, but we want to make sure that that's more widely known. And so this way, again, law enforcement and the medical communities are working with us as well as the economic community.
Listen, this is just the beginning of these conversations, and I'm really honored to have you speak with me about it. I hope this isn't the last conversation we have about this. And again, I thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Brian.